Greetings, everyone. This is Hong Long from Hong Long. Well, after this weekend, which saw some of the largest protests to ever hit the United States, ever, there have been some estimates of like 11 million people hitting the streets. I don't think that's quite the case, but there were definitely a few million that hit the streets across the United States over the course of the weekend. But this is especially... This post is about Saturday, and the main reason I'm putting this up there is because of the spinelessness of, well, not just the spineless, but the complicity of the mainstream media, which has been painting Trump's victory in November as a mandate for him to basically run roughshod of the Constitution, and also about the spinelessness of the Democrats in the face of this. If we look at the actual vote, Trump's vote increased like infinitesimally over that of the previous election, while the Democrats' vote crashed horrendously. The actual winner of the election was none of the above. More people abstained than voted than those who voted for either Trump or Biden, or Harris, I should say. So, in keeping with that, I want to point out that the mainstream media has been pushing Trump's parade and birthday party on Saturday for months. They predicted 200,000 people would show up, and nothing of the sort happened. Instead, people took to the streets in cities all across the United States, and this is I'm posting these from the first, or from the last to the first that I posted, mainly because that's the way Facebook works. But this is just a small assortment of those posts. So let's get started, shall we? First off, Lubbock, Texas. They said no to fascism. That crowd was estimated at 600 people, which is enormous for Lubbock. All right. Hamburg, Germany said no to fascism yesterday. Cibolo, Texas, population 36,374, said no to fascism yesterday, or actually Saturday. Bastrop, yes, Bastrop said no to fascism on Saturday, with an estimated 700 people coming out for the No Kings protest. Orlando, Florida said no to fascism on Saturday. And at a certain point, let's hope that these nationalist flags disappear from these protests to be replaced by the workers' red flag. Hopefully that'll start happening in the next round of protests. Oh, and I put this in here. You know who else said no to fascism? The troops, who overwhelmingly refused to salute the would-be Fuhrer as they hiked or strolled, not marched or paraded, past the grandstand. It was... apparently, this is being made fun of all over the world right now. Most of them refused to look at the grandstand. They looked down. They looked away. They held their guns in off positions. One of the images that struck me was one of the Stryker vehicles, where the guy was sitting there with his leg hanging out, leaning back in his chair, acting like he was going on a fishing trip rather than being in a military parade. That's something else. Pflugerville, Texas, said no to fascism on Saturday. Knoxville, Tennessee, they said no to fascism on Saturday. Those people, that's about 1,000 people there. Going all the way down the streets on both sides. St. Clair said no to fascism. Austin, Texas, they said no to fascism. Southern Florida, they said no to fascism. Prague, Czechoslovakia, said no to fascism. Silver Spring said no to fascism. Fort Worth, Texas, said no to fascism. Durham, North Carolina, and according to the comments from this post, every other city in the triangle, the economic triangle there in North Carolina, said no to fascism. Denver said no to fascism. St. Paul, Minnesota said no to fascism, even though there was an assassin who was still on the loose. Mill Valley said no to fascism. Martha's Vineyard said no to fascism. Let's see if I can get that in there. There we go. Martha's Vineyard said no to fascism. Laguna Beach also saying no to fascism. But this is why people took to the streets. Because the cops are fascists. And ICE and DHS. That's why they wear masks. I saw a video, I'm probably not going to be showing it here because I think I posted it a couple of days ago, where the cops on a horseback rode over a woman, an old woman, and trampled her. And cows said no to fascism. Even the cows don't like fascists. Madison, Wisconsin, saying no to fascism. Just in Madison, Wisconsin, they had more people than were at that parade for the Fuhrer's birthday, or would-be Fuhrer, I should say. Fort Lauderdale doesn't like fascism either. For those of you who did not see it, I recommend you go to YouTube and check out this video, Trump's Coup and How to Stop It. Worcester, Massachusetts said no to fascism on Saturday. Missoula said no to fascism. All those people. Hood River said no to fascism. That's about the turnout for the parade. So Hood River matched the months-long campaign by almost the entire mass media, including Trump from his pulpit, to build for his birthday party. It was matched by the turnout was matched by the turnout in Hood River. Baltimore, Maryland says no to fascism. Spokane, Washington saying no to fascism. That one actually looks like there's more cops than people, but oh no, there they come. They're marching. I was gonna say. Well, so one demo has more cops than people, but nope. It's just a bad edit. Cincinnati, Ohio doesn't want fascism or fascists. Workers in Porto said no to fascism. I'll play this for you.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania said no to fascism. Time to roll up the sleeves. You are not alone. Start preparing now for a general strike, because protest alone is not going to do anything. As the largest demonstrations up to now, the Iraq War demonstration, the demonstrations against the Iraq War, and the demonstrations against the George Floyd murder have demonstrated, as well as the Arab Spring most recently, and the situation in Greece. What is required, or even the Occupy movement, which I mean wasn't quite as large as us, but what is required is a conscious preparation and for a general strike. Outside of the general strike, I mean, that's the only place workers have the power, is by withholding their labor, and only by doing that on a mass scale, and not just here in the United States, but internationally, will we be able to affect real change. Anything else is like pissing them away. There you go. Build rank and file defense committees in every workplace, factory, school, and neighborhood to defend immigrants, students, and democratic rights. If you want to have good help building a rank and file committee, contact wsws.org/workers. Workers in New Hampshire said no to fascism. Workers in McKinney, Texas said no to fascism, dictatorship, and war. This is this is like a couple of photos demonstrating the fact that there were more people in Hood River, Oregon, coming out than there are for the would-be Führer's birthday party. Colorado said no to fascism. And these are not images you're going to see. Oh, and look at how violent they are. Both and the Democrats, you know, for those who think, oh, well, you need to support the Democrats. You know, Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass agree with Trump that these are violent protesters. They sent out, she sent out cops, and he sent out more National Guard troops to help quell the violence. The violence, which is all one-sided, and it's all coming from the government. San Diego says no to fascism. Houston, Texas, no to fascism. They say fascism doesn't belong here. Phoenix, Arizona workers say fascism is for scumbags. San Francisco, this one, they don't show the picture. Oh, that sucks. Let me see if I... Well, this was a photo of, I believe it was a beach in San Francisco where they said no to ICE. St. Louis says no to fascism. Kansas City workers say fascism has got to go as well. This was screw this. voting isn't going to do you a damn bit of good. Build rank and file committees. This was a photo of the State House in Lexington, Kentucky, being swarmed by people, kind of like that. But it was packed. It was more packed. I actually went. I saw this earlier, and I tried to go in there. I couldn't get to the picture. Anyway, voting for a Democrat's not going to help. It was Biden who said after the insurrection that we need a strong Republican Party. This is why they didn't prosecute Trump for carrying out an insurrection and fomenting an insurrection, and why he was able to take power again. Through the complicity of the Democratic Party, who wanted a strong Republican Party. Dallas, even the Cowboys hate fascism. Oh, there's a couple of different places. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Chicago, Seattle, New York City. Here, the Winkers trying to deport a homeless man. I finally gave up. Las Vegas says, even in the casino capital of the world, workers are saying no to fascism, dictatorship, and war. I would say there's about 1,000 people there. This is in Chicago, where workers said no to fascism. I've seen this clip a number of times. Let's see if we can't get it all on screen. Broad Street in Philadelphia. That's a lot of paid protesters. You know who the paid protesters are? I'll tell you who the paid protesters are. Paid protesters are fucking cops. Literally, in every, with the exception of one or two demonstrations, and I would say recent ones, or not really recent, but in response to the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, just about every single one of the demonstrations that have been carried out since, and this is not just here in the United States, but around the world since 1998, they found out the guys throwing the rocks, breaking the windows, or starting violent actions, throwing shit at the cops. These were done by police informers. Every single one. Of course, mainstream media won't report on it, but it usually comes out months later. Although, as time has gone by over like the last 10 years, it usually doesn't even take that long before they are exposed. But if you want to look for the paid informers or paid protesters causing violence, those are pretty much always cops. I remember one in the George Floyd protests. I don't remember where in California. It was in California. A mass dude started breaking windows, and two of the protesters pulled him back and stopped him. And the guy wound up getting his hands free, wound up pulling out his gun and his badge, and you could probably find that clip on the internet if you go looking for it. In Tennessee, workers said no to fascism. American workers don't like fascism or fascism. Fascists or fascism, but that isn't enough. Need to work for a general strike. Work for a general strike now. This is in Janesville, Wisconsin. Janesville, Wisconsin. Never even heard of the city. This was in New York City. Crowd estimated at 50,000, which means there's probably about 150,000 now. Yeah, that's wall-to-wall freaking people. It's at least 2 city blocks long, at least as much as you can see. So you don't know how much further it goes. They said that people were still getting in line to start marching in New York City when the front of the march hit the venue. Oh. And while hundreds of thousands gathered to protest fascism outside of retired troops and their family members, the stands for the parade were teeming with air. Oh, here we go. This is why they're called pigs. Bam. They hit like little girls, too, for the most part. They're going up against old guys, too. What's this one? This one is in LA. Oh, this is the one where they trample the old lady, huh? No, this is a wide shot of what we just saw. This is Philadelphia, where they said no to fascism. Workers in Boise, Idaho said no to fascism. Boise, Idaho. They said no to fascism. Looks like that mandate is one for him and his fascist sympathizers to go to jail. But it's not going to happen from protests alone. Build now for a general strike. Oops, get out. There we go. That's the one in Chicago. It's another view. Dallas, Texas again. What Trump's going to mandate? We can't do anything. The Democrats can't do anything. You know, when the Democrats control both houses of Congress and the presidency and the Supreme Court, they couldn't be bothered to pass a constitutional amendment to make abortion a constitutional right. They couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied. Their hands were tied. But the Republicans, they only control one house and they have like a slight majority of one vote. They can do anything they fucking want. New York City again. So many people in so many cities. The mandate is for the fascists to return back to the garbage heap from whence they came. This is in Nashville, Tennessee, where they also said no to fascism. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, said no to fascism. Love Park in Philadelphia. LA again. And it's just a small section of the entire protest. The Wall Street Journal reported on Friday that far-right militia groups aligned with Trump had been posting items on social media calling for deadly violence against protesters on Saturday. And in fact, they did carry out, the Proud Boys carried out a number of attacks, as well as I believe the Oath Keepers. There were attacks in Salt Lake, in, I'm trying to remember where else. There were a number of, there was Salt Lake, there was some in Minnesota. Well, there was the assassination in Minnesota. The guy's still running free, by the way. Even though he engaged in a shoot, he was actually engaged in a shootout with the cops, and they let him get away. But that's because he was a Nazi, and we all know that the cops are Nazis, so he was probably well known to them. But there were a number of incidences of fascist militias attacking protests, and not only did they attack them, but as far as I'm aware, none of them were arrested. I could be wrong, but since the mainstream media doesn't really report on this, unless it's buried in the middle of the paper, we don't know. So that's it, well, folks. I just wanted to make I wanted to document the fact that there were and those weren't all of the those weren't all of the protests by any means. Literally every state in the union had protests this weekend, and in every state, multiple cities had protests. I know here in Nevada they also had protests in Reno and Tahoe. In California, they had a number of protests in literally hundreds of little small cities. Indianapolis had protests. I didn't have any clips of that. Springfield, Illinois had protests. Cleveland, Ohio had protests. I mean, there were the cities all over the country had protests. There were apparently, they were saying that there were like 1 million people that showed up at the protest in Boston, Massachusetts. So there were a number of ones that I wasn't able to document. Basically, the ones I just went through my news feed, and I was sharing the ones that popped up in my news feed, and it's a lot. And like I said, the media who claimed that Trump has a mandate because he had a slight little uptick in his vote, whereas the Democrats' vote crashed, while more people voted for neither candidate, or none of the, actually we say none of the candidates, because there were a couple of other candidates that ran. More people abstained than voted for any candidate in the last presidential election. So if there's a mandate for anything, it's not for them. And as these protests show, if the only mandate that exists is one that says no to fascism, dictatorship, and war, people don't want that. The only ones who want that are the billionaires and the oligarchs, because they know that things cannot continue they cannot continue to rule in the old way, because social inequality is just completely out of hand. Freaking Elon Musk has what does he have? Like he got up to 400 billion at one point this year. I mean, that's an ungodly sum. I mean, 10 years ago, I think the most that anybody had was 15 billion. Okay, and at the same time, workers' wages have not just stagnated, but they've declined, because the union bureaucracy, while they mouth slogans about every single freaking contract coming down as being historic. In fact, every contract that they've signed over the course of the last 40 years has been concessionary in nature. That's why everybody's standard of living has gone down. Wages have not kept up with inflation, which means every year workers make less money than they did the year before, even if they don't get an actual pay cut. Although many of them do, especially like auto workers, 2008. The union tops are complicit in this. They act as goons for the bosses. They force through one rotten contract after another. They shut, like SAG-AFTRA last week, they signed a tentative agreement which gave the workers nothing, just forcing them on an individual basis to sign informed consent decrees to allow the companies to use their images and replicas in their stuff. And if they don't sign those informed consent, guess what? They don't get to work. They SAG-AFTRA to go after residuals, and then literally 2 days later, after discussions with the companies, the corporations, not with workers, before they showed workers a single piece of evidence or a single piece of the contract, they called the strike, which would next month have gone on for a year. They just called it off. Not that there was much. I mean, even though workers were many workers didn't go to work, a lot of them did. They forced. This is the new strategy of the unions, to force workers in the same union to scab on their brothers and sisters. SAG-AFTRA did this by in the video game strike by signing over 180 interim agreements, which allowed workers to go to work on the games that the companies wanted to put out and idled the rest of them. This followed on using the same policy during the film and television strike the year before, in 2023, which saw more people going to work in that year under these interim agreements than went to work the following year when there was no strike. And that's because they won zip. They got it handed to them by the union tops. Their chief negotiator, Duncan Crabtree, Ireland, makes over $1 million a year in dues money, and he's only the 7th highest paid union executive in the country. And like the same thing with the UAW, in 2023, yeah, who had a stand-up strike, which essentially meant that less than 10% went out on strike for like the first month, while the other 90% of UAW workers stood up on the assembly line and kept pumping out products with no contract, opening them up to victimization, which the company used to fire the most outspoken workers. At the height of the strike, less than 20% of workers from UAW went out, and the historic agreement that was signed saw mass layoffs, which are still continuing today. And Sean Fain supporting first Biden's drive to war, saying he's going to mobilize the UAW workers for Biden's wars, and now he's supporting Trump's tariff war. Same with Sean O'Brien, the two Seans, twin heads of corporate unionism, which essentially amounts to cops keeping an eye on you. That's why it is important for every worker everywhere to begin to organize. Talk to your friends, co-workers, family members, people you hang out with in clubs, in gyms, whatever, wherever workers congregate. You need your neighborhoods, clubs, schools, workplaces. You need to start forming democratically controlled rank and file committees, and you need to start discussing the way forward to a general strike. You need to band up or meet up with other rank and file committees in your area, and from there extrapolate to ever widening net to the International Workers Alliance of rank and file committees. Outside of an international general strike, we are the police repression is not going to stop, and what's going to happen is they're going to start a war. Well, they already are starting a war. There's wars going on everywhere, and the U.S. is behind literally all of them. But at a certain point, the wars are going to be going with other powers that can fight back. So the United States at some point is going to go to war with Iran, China, Russia, and who knows who else. And the same with those workers in Germany, France, Italy, Great Britain, and all of the other NATO countries. It's not decided yet who's going to go to war with whom, but they will all eventually go to war. They are all feeling the crunch of the decline in the rate of profit, which has been going on for 20 years. They were slightly able to get over this with the revolution in computer technology and the globalization of production. But now with the tariff war and the trade war starting, this is all going to begin collapsing in on itself. There's also been, for the last 20, 30 years, a crisis of overproduction. This is what, when they talk about overcapacity and closing things down, this is what that means. They produce way too much. Something that in any other age would have been considered a boon under capitalism. Being able to produce too much becomes its opposite. It becomes a signal of the decay of society. Anyway, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. I don't do political stuff that often, although when I do live stream, I do talk politics. So you might want to, if you like gaming, you might want to check some of those out. Or come on and talk to me while we're doing that. I have no issues with that, unless you're a fascist troll. I welcome everybody's views, but don't be surprised if you start spouting off nonsense that I tell you exactly what you're doing. All right, so as I said, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see you the next time. Have a good night, everybody.